James, will you please? He's become more famous than me. Director Comey.
Thursday will be one of the most consequential days of President Trump's administration so far. And that's because we're going to hear for the first time since he was fired from former FBI Director James Comey. He'll be testifying before a Senate committee, and he's expected to be asked not only about the Russian campaign to interfere with the U.S. election and how, if at all, the Trump campaign was related to that, but also the circumstances behind his firing. There's a lot of questions that lawmakers have about whether President Trump was pressuring him or interfering with that underlying investigation in some way. We've actually heard from Comey a few times through congressional testimony because he was such a main player in the elections. You might remember that he testified about his investigation, the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton and her handling of emails. And now he is looking, or he was until he was fired, was looking at any connections between Russians and the Trump campaign. So he's been front and center quite a bit, and lawmakers from both parties have been very interested in hearing from him about the Russian side of the investigation, as well as the circumstances behind his firing.
Truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you very much.
Since it's such an important day and his testimony will be carried live on many different TV stations, it's important for the White House to have a strategy for how it handles it. You know, President Trump is a prolific tweeter, as we all know, so there's been some question about whether Trump would be watching the hearings live and maybe even weighing in on Twitter. We, of course, don't have a definitive answer on that. We'll have to watch Twitter to see if that happens. But it's clear that the White House wants to keep the president busy that day. Sean Spicer, the press secretary, said at a briefing that the president has a full day. He'll actually be giving a speech here in Washington during part of the hearing, ensuring, or hopefully ensuring, that he won't be on Twitter. And there are lots of other White House events planned for the day. Now, at the same time, aides of the president and also outside groups that are supportive of the president are already starting to plan their pushback on Comey, depending, of course, on what he says. There's an outside group called the Great America Alliance. That's a politically active nonprofit that doesn't have to disclose its donors, that has cut a new ad that disparages Comey, really, questions his credibility based on some statements that he made at previous congressional hearings, and also questions whether he's too much of a political actor and not dedicated enough to the overall mission of the FBI. So that's one way that groups are trying to get out ahead of the hearing and raise questions in people's minds as to whether they can really trust anything that Comey says.